All right, folks. Test, 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 test. Hey, what's up, Sad? Thanks for stopping by. Give me a second. We're doing a random tasting and a visit to a local bar. It was unscheduled, but I was sitting at home twiddling my thumbs, and I wanted to do something. So give me a second, and we're getting our beer set up, and we're gonna do it. All right, folks. Good afternoon. It is the virtual tap house with Gus Guevara again. I was sitting at home twiddling my thumbs, and I didn't have anything scheduled, so I decided to come out to a local brewery and give them some exposure. We're going to Byers Brewing Company in DeKalb, Illinois, and I'm going to be here with the owner and brewer, and we will start off in a little bit. Give me a second. Let's go to the interview transition. Let me adjust the mic and camera.
Dude, this is better.
Oh, everything's better.
I mean, I know.
Okay, so we're here with Steve Byers, owner and brewer of Byers Brewing. Stalls Blues. This
Fresh.
is this where Otto's used to be, or is this next door to it?
Otto's used to be on the end. We're in it used to be Moxie's.
Moxie's.
Yeah, it was like a women's clothing store. It was Malone's for a long time, a department store.
All right, right on. Yeah, because I got a guy here that used to hang out in this area. I don't know where he's at now, but back in the '90s.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, all right, guys. Like I said, I'm here with Steve Byers. He's the owner and brewer of Byers Brewing Company. We're gonna do a random highlight and go through a tasting of his beers. All right. So, Steve, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? How'd you come here and what's going on?
All right. My name is Steve Byers. I grew up here in northern Illinois. I actually grew up down in Shabna, kind of outside Shabna, if you're familiar with the cornfields out west. I went to Sycamore High School. I went down to Illinois State University, and there's where I started home brewing in 2010. First batch that got me into it was trying to recreate one of my favorite beers that we couldn't find. It was New Belgium's Mothership, a wit beer that me and my wife just really loved, and then it went away. So we tried to recreate it, and we did kind of extract brewing at first for a while before we graduated from college. We were able to spend some decent money on some stuff, and upgraded the game to all grain, and we did all grain brewing for probably about 6 years, and then I somehow convinced her to let me open a brewery. So here we are. It's just me and my wife, and we're doing 3-barrel batches. We try to brew maybe once a week or once every other week, and like to make all kinds of different beers. I want beer for everybody, but we do only have 6 beers on tap. We did add, though, canning with COVID. We'd never had cans before that, but it's something we picked up. So now that gives us a little bit more variety we can have, because we can have some beers in cans and just some beers on tap.
All right, so tell us a little bit real quick. I mean, everyone's touched on this. How's COVID affected you and your business?
COVID's been, personally, COVID has really been difficult. I also teach at the high school here in DeKalb. I teach high school biology, so we've been teaching from my home electronically, or sometimes my side gig here. But it's been incredibly difficult when I think about just sheer numbers. We opened up last August, so we only had about 6 months or so before COVID, And when I looked over the numbers with the accountant, we were doing pretty well, well enough to live or to continue doing this. And then with COVID, it immediately dropped to only 30% of what we were doing. And I just looked at the numbers. Actually, November and March were our 2 worst months so far, and they were both under 30% of what we would normally expect. Which, as you can imagine, puts tremendous stress on the family, and we have 3 young kids, and my wife and I are still working, so luckily we could survive at home pretty decent. But keeping the brewery going has been difficult, and I actually sat down with my accountant in late October and asked, how do we close up shop? Because it looked like it was the end. And then he said, hang in there for a little bit, and then we were able to get a grant from the government, the Business Interruption grant is called, which now just takes a huge load off our back. We've got enough money to get us through for a couple months at least. So really, really hoping that like come March, when it's warming up and we all want to get outside again, that we can maybe be open again now that vaccines are out and everything. So it was really, really, really hard. And then that grant really just made it so much easier. And so now we're just hanging in there and trying to innovate and double down on making really good beers and make more beer, because that was really where we were at for a while. So we didn't even have money to make beer, and so it was time to kind of think about, well, the end might be near, and then now we're good, and I've got lots of ingredients. I got 6 batches worth of ingredients downstairs that I just got to turn into wonderful beer, and I got some new recipes coming. Really excited about the next couple months.
All right, that's awesome. So you heard it from the horse's mouth, guys. So hold on for a second. My camera's frozen, so hold on. Let me try to readjust it real quick. Still frozen. I'll mess with it in a little bit. So. Let's start with one of the beers, and then we'll get this camera unfrozen. All right, so we're gonna start with the Baron Pils, which is tell us about the Baron Pils.
Baron Pils is one of my favorite beers. I've been homebrewing this or something similar to this for years. Just really, I'm personally kind of a beer history nerd, and I definitely like the brewing traditions that come out of Germany. I think not only because I have some German ancestry, but they're just my favorite style of beer. So when I was looking at including a lighter beer for a little bit more easy drinking, when I think about German beer hall, which is kind of what we wanted our place to be like, you have to have kind of a lighter, easy drinking beer that is crushable, So what I was going for here is just keeping it kind of light and simple. In that way people could enjoy it, by the liter, which I should totally get some liter jugs so we can enjoy it by the liter, but it's on my list of things to do is get some bigger mugs for different things like the Pils.
This tastes pretty good. What from start to finish, how long does this take you to get it on the shelf?
I've been doing it in at least 28 days, or no less than 28 days. So when I think about the end product, I want 28 days after brew day is the first time that I'll sample it and kind of see where it's at. For the most part, I think I've done 3 batches of this or so. Flip through my notes here. And I think most of them have been right after that, turned out pretty good. So yeah, right around 28 days is pretty much where it's at, from brew day to keg and in the cooler.
All right, so such a long production time compared to other stuff. Do you shy away from that, or you just make sure you plan ahead of time?
I think it's it's definitely not shy away.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say it's necessarily plan ahead of time. That's not really something I'm getting better at as the days go on, is planning ahead. But it's definitely something that I was interested in. I think it's a commitment, and from day one, design of everything we did here to the system, I had planned on at least brewing 1/3 lagers. So it's kind of just always been part of the plan, so I know I have the time to do it. and it is something that I'd like to do more often, because I think lagers, again with my favorite German traditional beers, there's so many great lagers out there, and really they're harder to find, and sometimes you guys probably know when people go and they see, a fine Pilsner, which is a beer that's out there. I'm sure you've seen that on a beer. It's not really though, is it? I mean, there's where I'm like, okay, some of these beers are claiming to be like a fine Pilsner, but then when you have a traditional Pilsner, there's a lot of difference there. And again, with my beer history, I just like my tradition, And so when I was planning on it, a German style Pils was always going to be at the front.
All right, so what kind of hop do you use in this? What's the ABV? What's the IBU? All that good stuff. What do you got going?
Sure. So this batch has, this one I used Magnum in. So Magnum's one of those hops that a lot of people are using for bittering hops early on in the boil. This was actually the first batch that I used Magnum in. Previously I was just using some other hops that weren't as high alpha acid, but I didn't like, they were coming out a little bit too, not exactly what I wanted. So I went to Magnum to try and get more alpha acids in early.
Real quick, but generally, where does Magnum hops come from?
It's typically a German. This one is Hallertau Magnum, which is from the Hallertau region in Germany.
All right.
So it's a German style hop, and then Hallertau Herzbrucker is another one that I use, and Tettlinger, which are all German hops. Different from like a Czech Pils, which usually has like Saaz in it. I tend to think, again, the German tradition is always better, in my opinion.
Let's see what we got here. Let's see. Taphouse fan, hey, thank you very much for the $3 donation. I appreciate it. It'll go to pay my bar tab. I appreciate it a lot, guys. Thank you very much. Okay, so this Baron Pils, is this your flagship beer, or this is something that you just brew all the time?
We didn't really have a flagship beer. The reason being, I'm not a Siebel trained or formally educated brewer. So knowing that I was going from 10-gallon batches in my garage to 100-gallon batches here, I knew there were going to be a lot of learning for me to do. So when we first opened, I actually had the goal of not brewing the same beer twice, and that worked pretty well through up until COVID. So for the first 6 months, we didn't brew the same beer twice, which was really great because I could, experiment a lot more, do a lot of different things, and then it just came down to really the ability of people wanting to know what they're getting. When I couldn't get people in the tap room and I couldn't give them, here, try a sample of this and try a sample of this, and we couldn't talk about it, it really made it difficult to just continue making new beers all the time. So we always had an idea of kind of 6 styles we wanted with our 6 taps. Like one would probably always be a light lager. We'd have a dark lager. We'd always have a stout or a porter, mostly a stout because I love stouts. We'd always have a wheat beer. Knowing that there was kind of a theme to our taps, but there was never like set in stone, like, hey, I have to have this Hefeweizen, which is one of the beers that we make all the time. But now, like wintertime, I want to make my Weizenbach and just mix it up. It's still a wheat beer, so it kind of stays with that category. But just keeping it flexible. So when I think about this, it's definitely, if I were to say, in my thoughts, we had anything close to a flagship, I think that this is one that would definitely be in the running, because I think it's an easy drink of beer. It has a lot of mass appeal, but it also has like the craft. It's also it's a solid beer. It's not light and watery, or it's flavorful. It's delicious, I think, and so I think it could definitely be in the running for like a flagship.
Awesome. So let's talk a little bit about your brewery. So let's get a few things out of the way. So what are you got? I'm sure you have like modified hours because of COVID. What are you running right now?
Right now we're just doing 2 hours a day for 5 days of the week. So we're 4 to 6 Monday through Friday, and then Saturday and Sunday just noon to 2.
All right. So do you guys do curbside service? Do you do
Yep.
growlers and all that good stuff?
We do whatever anybody wants, and however we can get beer into people's hands. We have a website that people can order on. You can order both our 4-packs of cans and growler fills or growler swaps. We fill anybody's growler. I've always said, we're not in the glassware business. I'm in the beer business. I want you to have my beer, and if you got a growler with somebody else's name on it, it holds beer just as well as with my name on it.
That's awesome. Yeah.
And so people ask to come out and park, and we'll walk orders out. One of the things that we're really fortunate to have, as you guys can kind of see being in here, social distancing, is we have a ton of room. During normal times, our fire code is 155 people, so we can fit a ton of people in here. So during these times when social distancing is important to everybody, we actually have tables that are well over what anybody recommends as far as distance. I know we think about 6 feet, but I made sure bench to bench is 8 feet because I know people get up and move and that sort of thing. So we've got tons of room to spread out, yeah, we got lots of room. And we'll do curbside, online. People can come in and get the growlers filled, whatever works.
All right. So during summertime, do you guys have tables outside or anything like that, or?
We were. So that was one of the things the city of DeKalb was nice enough to work with us on. Is when we first got in here pre-COVID, I asked, hey, can we put a couple seats out front, just in the sidewalk area? It's not a very big sidewalk if you haven't been here, but it's there. And they were like, no, we don't want anybody out there. And then COVID happened, and the city of DeKalb was phenomenal in the fact that they pretty much said, you do whatever you want. However we can support you, we're going to support you. I said, I just want to put, a 2-top. Actually, I asked for a 4-top out there on the sidewalk, and they said, no, let's keep it to 2. And I said, okay. So we put some 2-tops out there. We've been, kind of fortunate-ish, but both restaurants on each side of us, because we're in between Top and Luna on one side and the Lincoln Inn on the other, both of them closed. So we could put tables in front of their businesses as well, because they said that was fine. So we could fit quite a few out there, but really it was like 8 to 10 people was all that we could fit.
All right. Food trucks, bands.
We've done, we love having food trucks in here. One of the cool things now, we don't have necessarily a food truck to come in, but we've had like Burritoville in town can wheel in they have like a food cart. They bring right in our doors, and they sit and make tacos for everybody. The city of DeKalb won't let us put a food truck in the front of our building. We've thought about putting one in the back, but really, if you come to downtown DeKalb, during normal times, we are surrounded by some really, really amazing food, all different kinds of food. There's pizza, there's Thai food, there's American burgers and stuff, there's Middle Eastern cuisine, so we're bring your own food. And people, quite often, we have people who are just ordering, come by, and we do keep menus from all our neighbors around. Most of them will, if you ask, will deliver, so you can call up, order something, they'll bring it over for you. And then we do have kind of a unique space. We're a U-shape, so we're sitting, and behind me you can see the front bar where you order your beer. But we're a U-shape, and on the other side, kind of in our front window, is a little bit of a stage, we like to think of it as. So during normal times, we were doing open mic nights on it. We would have bands on weekends and different things. It's really a great space for like smaller acoustic shows. But we have done some, what we call Byers Brewing after hours, where we stay open late, because normally we were only open till 10 on weekends, but we'd stay open until midnight, get a loud band in here, and really have a lot of fun. So,
awesome.
We love having live music and different people. We've had comedians come in and do some open mic night stuff, and it's really a blast.
Awesome. So let's go do some closing notes on this Bear and Pill. So what's the ABV on this?
ABV is 5.3.
Okay. IBUs, you got an IBU listing for it?
I don't think I do have an IBU. That's what I was looking for on my notes here.
Yeah, so you probably I would say around, it's not very bitter, so I would say maybe about 25.
I got it right here. It's I gotta do some quick math in my head though. Looking like somewhere right around 34 actually.
All right. So
according to my notes.
All right, so that's awesome. All right, let's start talking about moving on to the next one, guys. It's going to be the Downtown Pale Ale. Is that what it is?
Yeah, Downtown Pale Ale. I always try and keep our names, something to do with DeKalb or something. Baron Pills, Baron Johann DeKalb was the guy that DeKalb's named after. We're right here in downtown, so we wanted to go with downtown Paleo on this one.
Hey Mike, can you grab that for me? Thanks, dude.
So the downtown Paleo, this one comes in at 6.3%. It is primarily 2-row. It's got a little Crystal 40 in it, for those of you familiar with that. And then it is Centennial, Simcoe, and Cascade hop. But I did add, which I think I didn't even put in my notes because it was kind of it was a decision made after much conversation and a little bit of beverages, if you're familiar with those decisions. But I did add a little Amarillo dry hop to it because I wanted it to have a little bit more than what it had.
I mean, I got a little citrus off the nose on it, and then I think that dry hop's probably what it
That's what I got.
I can't put my finger on it.
I was like, that's it.
Yeah. I know pale ales traditionally are not usually dry hopped, but I feel like you can kind of sneak away with it every once in a while. It wasn't very big. It wasn't we talk about like NIU and these hazy IPAs that were really putting depth charges in.
Yeah.
That's a dry hop, but this was like a little something to give it a little something else.
Where do you source your ingredients from?
I've used a couple different places over time. I started with BSG. So my journey, I guess, started with, I took a class out in Colorado called a Brewery Accelerator course with the Craft Beer and Brewing magazine. It was 4 days. It was 4 days, and it was honestly the most fun of my life because I left my wife and kids and got to drink beer in Colorado with really awesome. It was like the brewery owners and the guys from Left Hand and Weldworks, and we started at Weldworks, which is a really great brewery, and got to sit and chat with the owners and the brewers of these things. So, but one of the things that was there, there was a little bit of marketing from different companies, and so BSG was there. They really worked out how to order ingredients and all the details and everything. So I immediately went with them. And then just kind of looking at cost of shipping and everything and trying to go local, I switched it up to a different company called Country Malt Group. And then BSG kind of hunted me down and were like, why'd you switch? And it's like, well, it's cost effective to use them and not you. And they were like, we'll match it. It's like, okay. Well, they have a huge selection of different ingredients. So I've been using BSG for a while for all my malts and everything, and some of my hops. I'm right at that border between big homebrew, small nano brewery. So when I think about ordering hops, if I order a 44-pound bag of hops, it's a 2 years, depending on what it is. It's that could last me 2 or 3 years. I mean, I did that first with the Hersbrucker, Hallertau Hersbrucker. I bought 44 pounds of it, and then quickly realized that was dumb because it was, it's inexpensive to do that, relatively speaking, but it's so much hops that I'm just not going to use that for probably 5 years. And I want to use fresh ingredients. I want to make sure I'm using the best of the best. So I kind of honestly don't even plan on using all of that Hallertau because 3 years from now, if there's some left, I'm just give that away to some local brewers who want to make some stuff, or Frankenstein or something. I'll make a Frankenstein at home to give to my buddies.
Is there any local suppliers around here, like
there
fresh
are
hops?
A couple. So early on, when I was still building out, a guy contacted me, and he's actually out on, I think it's Rich Road. It's up there kind of by the high school, and you go west of town, and he said, I got an acre of hops. I'm planning on getting 33,000 pounds of hops. And I said, sweet, I want to buy some. I want local. And that was the year, so that would have been 2019 when we had this ridiculously wet spring.
Yeah.
And so he never contacted me during harvest time. So I assume he just didn't have the production that he assumed he would have. And so I never heard from him. But there's another company out of Ottawa called Livewire Hops. They've come in a couple of times. It was actually nice. They came in. They have local hops, but they're also part of a hop trading group, so they can get hops from pretty much anywhere. But they came in and they brought me 4 samples of hops they were thinking about having, and they brought me the hops and a beer made with just those hops. So it's really cool to get to kind of play with the hop, but then also enjoy the beer.
That's awesome.
Made with that hop, and I really want to work with them. I'm not entirely sure how to, because the hop world is that of contracts. You know, the growers need contracts so they know what to plant. And so as little guys, we're kind of in the position where a contract wouldn't make any sense, right? I'm going to need like 20 pounds of hops this year. They don't even package that small. It's 44 pounds or more. And so I'm kind of stuck using smaller homebrew websites most of the time. Like More Beer has always been one of my favorites. So I get a lot of my hops there. And I think Livewire, you know, I think they're producing a lot, and they call it spot hops when they're not on contract, and I think they just didn't have any spot hops this year, or what, because I kind of expected them to contact me when they knew what they'd have so I could pick some up. But recently, this time of year, all the brewers who do have contracts, especially this year with COVID, I think, are like, wow, we haven't used as many hops, because all of our tap rooms are down, and I think beer consumption is still up, but I think they're just, you know, tap rooms are closed, so maybe some of the more experimental stuff. So I was able to get, which really had me worried, because I use Citra in several of my beers, and like More Beer doesn't have Citra anymore. They're out. And I was like, man, am I gonna have to like hunt around to find enough Citra? Because this NI Universe, the one we're gonna have next, the Hazy, is one of the ones that I've gotten really good feedback from, and I want to keep around. And it has a lot of Citra in it. So I was like, if I can't find Citra, that beer's gone. But I was able to actually, I think, source it out of Noon Whistle. Noon Whistle put out in our Illinois Craft Brewers Guild, hey, we got a bunch of extra hops, who wants it? And I jumped at it because I knew Citra was going to be hard to find. So
that's awesome.
Now I've kind of got a good stash of hops. Again, it's like 44 pounds, but unlike Herzbrucker, Citra I use in several pounds per batch. So it won't quite last 4 or 5 year's, but it probably will be a year's supply, or maybe even more.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. I don't know if you have any cans laying around. Who does your can art?
All of the can art so far has been done by me. Me and my wife sit down and kind of design it and figure it out. We have actually just hired on OC Creative, who's kind of on the east side of DeKalb, and they are improving my can art. So they're not redesigning it. They're making it look like a professional did it and not a high school biology teacher / brewer.
I did that with the virtual Taphouse logo.
Yeah.
I went to what is it? Fiverr, online Fiverr.
Yeah.
I got it's when people sell their services, you know, out of there. So I got some kid in Thailand to make mine for like $5. It was awesome.
Yeah. There's a lot out there, and those guys at OC Creative, they're very active in DeKalb with a lot of things. They've been in here for numerous fundraisers, which is weird that we've had, I guess, numerous fundraisers, but we have. And so they're good friends now. So I was like, I'm gonna reach out to them, and especially once we got that grant, it was like, we don't have to pinch every penny. When I come over to Hy-Vee and I see just this gigantic wall of beautiful ornate cans with all kinds of fun stuff, and then I kind of saw mine and was like, I think I need a little something else. Like I need to kick it up.
So what's putting you ahead of everyone else? A lot of them out there, UPCs.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, so a lot of some of the bigger guys don't even have UPCs. I got
Really?
and as a retailer,
Yeah.
it is such a pain in the butt to make up UPCs. You know, register.
Sure.
You know, do it. You know, put
You
them on the
gotta
can.
put stickers on everything.
You got to put stickers on everything, and you know, hope to God that the
I didn't
registered.
think that was an option, to be honest.
Yeah.
With you. I was like, I didn't think you'd carry it if I did. I was
Yeah,
like, well, I
no,
guess we
it's-
gotta go buy some, and they are.
Well, there's that one company that takes care of them all, and they want to sell them in groups of 10 or 100.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Well, I think it's I bought 10.
Yeah.
So trying to keep again to like the categories.
Yeah.
So like.
Keep one SKU for rotational seasonal.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that's it, and the
I
rest.
only have 10, and I already messed up 3 of them. So I got to figure out how to
Yeah, I mean,
recover those. And,
You can still reuse them. You know.
Yeah.
It's just my suggestion is when you know if you're going to reuse make sure that no one out there has that one you're reusing on their shelf.
okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, like that beer's sold.
Yeah,
all
that beer's
before.
sold and stuff like that. Also, you know, when you go to ring it up, it comes up as that beer.
Yeah.
You know, and then
Okay.
you know,
You don't like the generic, like, this is a wheat ale.
well, we could do that. You know, as long as they're the same price point.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
if they're the
That's
same,
what-
if they're the same price point, that's the easiest way to reuse.
That's
them.
kind of what I was
Yeah,
planning on.
so-
It's all right, I'm gonna keep, like, my stouts are always gonna be this price point, and so I can reuse that,
Yeah.
that UPC on.
Remind me after this, we got to talk about pricing too, because you're missing out on a couple opportunities.
All right,
All right, so
cool.
all right, so that's the downtown. Any last words on the downtown pale ale?
I got nothing.
You got nothing. All right.
Moving on.
So you know this is actually pretty good. So I don't.
It's not my German tradition
Yeah.
that I love.
All right, so let's go to the NI universe.
Neither is this one, but hazy IPAs they're good and they're fun and they're popular for a reason. I don't foresee them like going away.
Yeah, I mean, I tasted a quadruple hazy from, who was that from? Remember at Sessions?
Yeah, hold on, I'll get there.
Hop Butcher.
Yeah, Hop Butcher.
Okay.
Quadruple hazy. Incredible. I never knew you could get so much flavor without
Yeah.
tasting the alcohol in it.
Those guys are killing it. I mean,
Oh my God.
they're making such good beer. It's such a fun, like the industry is such an enjoyable place because not only are guys like that killing it, and like there's so much creativity out there with beer, but 99% of every brewer or owner or anybody I've ever met is the nicest person in the world. They're
Yeah.
100% willing to, hey, like, you want to talk about it? Like the guys at WeldWorks, when we were there taking my class, their big famous beer is Juicy Bits, which I got some at Hy-Vee not too long ago.
Yes.
It was better when I was in the tap room.
Yeah.
Every
Yeah.
beer's better in the tap room.
Yeah.
But he published the recipe for Juicy Bits after, I think he won a Great American Beer Festival for it when he first introduced it, if I recall correctly. I might be wrong. But like he went out and published the recipe because it's just, hey, I'm going to share what I have with you guys, and I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, that's all the brewers that I've talked to during this doing this on this tap house, virtual tap house.
Yeah.
Everyone has been, once you start getting them talking about their passion, they really open up, and it's everyone's been really cool. So
It's an awesome community.
Yeah.
I mean, we might be kind of drunk sometimes.
all right, so let's get on to NI Universe. So what's the story behind this one?
So, when I was making NI Universe, so I kind of wanted to keep some thematics to names, and so I thought, we have a lot of universes in our lives. We live in the Milky Way, but we also live in kind of this Northern Illinois universe. I grew up out in cornfields in Shabana. Now I live in Sycamore, and now I live in DeKalb, and we kind of have all these different universes that kind of surround ourselves with. So I thought, why don't I just go with that with all my IPAs? They're different universes, right? And this one is Northern Illinois universe because it's where I live, right? This is where I'm at. And this beer, I think I've made 5 batches of, and each one has had little nuances different. If you have the 7.1% alcohol one that I made previously, it's a little bit bigger than this one we're drinking here. This batch only came out to 5.9% alcohol. And that changes a little bit of the mouthfeel behind it because the yeast didn't quite ferment out as much of the sugar as it did in that previous batch. So instead of having that higher ABV and less sugar, we have a little lower ABV and some more sugar involved. Which I was a little bit skeptical about at first because I was, I think beer lovers are going to recognize we have a different beer here. But it's same hop, same everything, it's the same exact thing. But what I did is I switched yeasts because I found that the production schedule that I'm on wasn't really supporting the idea of harvesting yeast. I really knew that was a huge kind of financial thing that breweries can do is to harvest the yeast and reuse it. So in one purchase you get maybe 2-3 beers out of it. And so I did that up until this beer was actually the first beer that was just a one pitch first generation and done. And with the hazy specifically, the goal is that you get this biotransformation that happens when you pitch or when you dry hop during active fermentation. So these typically have been coming in at 106.4-ish, and they were before this one coming all the way down to 101.4, somewhere in that area. I probably haven't written in my notes specifically, but and so the goal is when it's halfway through, is when you want to dry hop. That's kind of how it, and I'm not entirely sure on the chemistry of it, but that's how it does the biotransformation that gives it the haziness, along with the high protein malts. But so this one, previously I was using liquid yeast and it would take maybe 4 or 5 days. I literally pitched the yeast, came back in 24 hours, and it had finished.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, okay, well, it's real hard to pitch at the halfway mark. When it finished, it essentially finished. It was at 2.4. So it was like, it only came down another 0.04. It's essentially finished. I dry hopped it right away, so we still have a little bit, but I have a feeling this one will clear completely over time, just because it didn't quite get the same biotransformation. And it's crazy to think about that the yeast didn't finish out as well as previously, but it also was done in like 24 hours. So it's just, whenever we're making beer, we're working with living organisms, and they do things differently sometimes. And so one of the things that, I try and express to people when I talk about them is, know that beers can change from batch to batch. And I think a lot of seasoned drinkers pick that up, whether you've been drinking Sierra Nevada Pale Ale for 20 years, you probably picked up little nuances over time that just changes. And that's part of the fun of it,
So what did the ABV come out on this one then?
This one's 5.9.
Okay. So I don't know what it is, because this one is, the nose is awesome. Mm-hmm. But when I drank it out of the can, it didn't emulate the nose.
Okay.
This one off the tap emulates the nose a lot more.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. That would be because I use, CO2 is an important resource in any brewery. I don't have the big bulk tank. I use what look like scuba diver size tanks, kind of smaller tanks. And I didn't quite realize, one of the things with CO2 tanks, if you're familiar with them, the regulator sometimes reads different than what's actually in the tank. Like, regulators, I feel like, are the worst things in the world, and they're annoying. But so I've been carbonating at 12 psi for 4 days for pretty much all my beers, and it's mostly worked out. What I didn't realize with this one is that so I hook up to my carb stone in my fermentation, my unit tank. I use all unit tanks, so I don't have a brake tank or anything, but I hook up, and then when I go to keg, I also hook up through the overflow, I guess is maybe what it's called, just to provide a pressure on top to push beer out. My pressure gauge on day 3 was up to, I think, 8 psi in the tank, but then on day 4, when I came into keg, it had dropped to 6. But my regulator on my tank still said the tank was full. Long story short, it didn't carbonate the way it should have because of the tank was empty, or it was too empty. Because when these tanks get mostly empty, they just don't have the pressure in them anymore. So I think that first batch that you would have gotten, if you got the canned first batch of the 5.9, it was just a little bit flat, which would keep that aroma from coming out of the can. So now I'm carbing up each keg individually instead of the whole batch. And then today when we're done, I'm going to go can some more of it that is now carved up.
That explains it perfectly, because there is a big difference.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Is this the batch that you had canned up on Black Friday? Or is that the older batch?
I think that was the older batch.
Okay, because when I poured it out, that's like you said, the biotransformation.
Yeah.
And it was definitely way hazier.
Yeah. This one, it's already starting to clear up.
You know what though? I really love this as like a happy accident.
Yeah.
Like the nose is there, and it may not have that same body, but like it's got a little added sweetness that kind of works with the citrus.
Sure.
I'm a fan of this.
And that's what I felt like too. Is it's different.
Yeah.
But I don't feel like it's worse. I
No.
think it's still a great beer. It's a little bit different, and the flavors that I'm getting, the nose and everything, they line up. But it's just that, like, it's got a bit more mouthfeel, a little bit of sweetness in it that it didn't have before. And I'm like, well, I don't know, which one do I like better? Because they're both good, I think.
I agree.
But
So when I've been in the restaurant industry, that's where my background comes from. And where do you get your gas from? Is there a place that comes services it, or you just bring the tanks in?
I get it from just a guy. I think he lives in Waterman or something.
Okay. All right, so you I don't know if you realize this. I never realized it until they told me they make a special mixture.
Yeah.
For beer.
I haven't taken the
Yeah.
beer mix, the nitrogen and CO2.
Yeah. I
The,
never realized that, and I was just
well, the
ordering
benefit
stuff.
of using just CO2
Yeah.
is then if I have a beer that came out a little bit flat, it'll carbonate in the keg because I'm using straight CO2.
Yeah.
So he gave me a tank of the beer mix, and I just haven't even used it because I haven't used it. But I originally started with Air Gas, a big company, nationwide company, and the cost was unbelievable.
Yeah.
I was getting a bill for like $150 a month, and there was no tank exchange at all. That was just to have their tanks here. And I
Are
was
you
like,
serious? Wow, that's crazy.
I can't pay you $150 a month just to have your tank here, like. And so I called them and said, hey, you got to. It was actually the Top of the Luna guys, and I think most of downtown uses the same guy.
All right.
He's just an individual. I think he's a farmer actually.
I think that's
but he
nice.
does this on the side.
Yeah,
Nice.
that's nice.
And it's it's a one time. Oh, you need a full tank? It's $30. All right, sweet.
Nice.
And if it sits here for 6 months, I'm not paying tank rental, and it's just.
So all you guys out there that own your own kegerators, you can probably go to this guy in water. What is he in Waterman?
Yeah.
I mean, I honestly forget his first name. I have him in my phone as Gas Guy. He's my gas guy, but he's great because I call him and I'm like, hey man, need a couple tanks maybe tomorrow or something. He's like, sure, I'll be there.
That's awesome.
Or when he's coming up to Stanley's, I know he uses them, and some of the other places he comes up. Hey, I'm gonna be in the neighborhood. You need any tanks? Sure, swap one out.
That's great.
But there's some physics behind the smaller tank.
Yeah.
The pressure is different in smaller tanks, and so things like this, which happen with this beer, are more likely to happen versus paying. If I had air gas still, I probably wouldn't be having an issue like that. But bottom line is I gotta be in the black, so to speak. I gotta make money, and if I can't make any money because $150 is going to air gas a month when it wouldn't have cost me anything, it's like, well, there's just more money that I need to put into things like bigger mugs for beer and pills and stuff that people want directly. Something like the gas as well, but when a beer comes out flat, it's like, well.
So would it cost you? Would it be more cost effective to do that, or how about like bottle conditioning?
Bottle conditioning is just you have much less control over it, so it's tricky. I think safety-wise, I wouldn't really want a bottle condition. I never had much luck with it as a home brewer, although I switched to kegs pretty quickly because cleaning bottles gets old, as I'm sure most home brewers eventually go, yeah. When you brew once or twice a year, that's fine, but when you're brewing every other week, it's like, yeah, we're going to need to keg this beer because hand bottling, and I do still have my Blickman beer gun. That's how I started my first cans.
Nice.
I don't know if you got any of those cans at Hy-Vee, but the first, 2 months or something, I was just using a Blickman beer gun.
Now your stuff is you're going through about a case every week and a half.
Yeah.
Of each SKU. So.
Nice.
Yeah. I mean, when it comes down to it, they see Byers Brewery, and everyone wants to support local.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So they
We
don't ask
appreciate it, I mean.
they don't ask the price, they don't ask anything. They say, oh, local, gotta buy it. So and then we have the customers that come in too, is like give me something local that I can't get from where I'm from. So
Well, I always think about, there's a meme out there, when you support local business, you're not paying for somebody's private jet. You're paying for kids' dance lessons and
Yeah,
that
I've
sort
seen
of
that.
thing. And like my kid literally dances like 3 doors down there.
all right.
If you buy my beer, it literally does pay for my kids' dance lessons. So
All right. So anything else you want to? Well, NA Universe. So what? Real quick. What's the IBU alcohol content and all that stuff?
All right, so we've got. Let me look here. I could have sworn on this printout it had my IBU total, but I can't seem to find it. So this is all Simcoe and Citra. So I made 5 batches. Batch 2 was Citra Mosaic. Otherwise, it's been all Simcoe, Citra. And this, probably batch number 3 is where I more than doubled the amount of hops that went into it. Because batch 1 was okay. It wasn't. I really did research and reading about some of these guys who were putting like 4 pounds per barrel of hops in their dry hop, and I was like, I barely have like 1. I was like, I need to put more in, so I upped it. So now there is, I would say, almost about 3 pounds per barrel. And IBU wise, one of the things that's fun about this beer is there's actually no boil hops at all. I first wort and whirlpool, and then it's dry hop. So I guess I'd have to do a lot of math here. That's about 10 plus, that's 42. We're at 42 IBUs so far, and I think I've got a little bit on this side. About 42, it looks like.
Are those Beersmith sheets?
These are Beersmith sheets.
Awesome.
I switched to using Beersmith, and I like it, but one of the things I'm getting better at is making sure when I get my hops in to like enter my alphas, since I just bought 44 pounds of Citra. Now it's in there and accurate, because every time I have to calculate, okay, well, to get the same IBUs, I don't actually need that because I have a different alpha acid. So I calculate by hand and scribble on here. But I found it pretty helpful. I was using Brewer's Friend at home, which was just simple and easy. But then with Beersmith, it's like I can track cost, I can track inventory, I can track so much more. You know, I live almost a mile away, and so my inventory's here. I can be at home and look up what I got. Whereas with Brewer's Friend, that wasn't a thing, and I could have done Excel spreadsheets. But I got enough going on with teaching and whatnot.
So is Beersmith, is that a program that you guys buy, or is it like a program that you pay a subscription to? Or
It's a one-time buy. So it's I forget the guy's last name. I think it's Smith, which is why it's Beersmith.
Yep.
And he's a PhD. He's Dr. Smith, I think.
Yeah.
all right.
I forget what he's a doctor of, but it's a one-time purchase. You can enter. You can really go into tons of detail.
Yeah.
With any brewing, once you know your equipment and you know the nuances and how the temperature is going to change, and you can program those into your software, that's when you really can get like spot on. So
That's awesome.
I would say I think I'm on batch 33, 34 here, and the equipment is mostly dialed in at this point. Probably not perfectly, but it's mostly dialed in. But it's only been mostly dialed in since like the summer. Yeah, Beersmith it's a great sheet to use.
Yeah.
Although it never seems to have IBUs on it. Everybody always wants to know IBUs, and I'm like,
It's all the beer nerds out there. They want to know
it
everything.
doesn't say. It gives me per like.
Yeah.
I think
it's in there, but it doesn't come out on the sheet.
Yeah.
It's not on the brew step sheet. It's on the recipe sheet.
Yeah, it's in the recipe sheet.
But I only
right?
ever print the brew step sheet. So.
Yeah, it's weird too, because like I've gone to places where I ask questions about their beer, you know, the brewers about their beer, and they know it, you know, but sometimes it takes them a little bit to search for it, you know, because you got a million things going on in your head.
Yeah.
But you go to Untapped and they have this information, and you're like, where did you get that information from? You know what I'm saying? Are people just throwing out numbers there and just, you know?
I know on our Untapped is a weird thing. I put in some IBUs, sat down, pulled up my Beersmith, and gotten all my numbers and added in, because I know consumers want to know them, and so I want to provide them. On my to-do list, it's not the highest thing on there, obviously, because I think only about half of mine actually have them. But you can go in and add them, and like so we started out I didn't name any beers, you know. It was just Hefeweizen. It was just stout. But now I've gone into Untapped and merged stout with Donna stout, which is the same beer, I just gave it a name eventually. And so Untapped is one of those weird things where it's really great, I think, from a personal, like I use Untapped to track all the beers that I taste. On the brewery end, it's not always the best feedback because I think the biggest thing is, and if you're paying attention right now, the biggest thing you could do Untapped better is like if it's not a style you like, it's probably not worth giving really low numbers to. Like just check it in.
Just
check it in. You don't have to
exactly.
give it like a 2 because you hate Hefeweizen.
Yeah.
Like
I use Untapped as a retailer to keep an eye on what beers people are getting from,
yeah.
you know, where they're
I
buying
look at
them.
that often. They're like, what are the top beers in
Yeah.
the country right now?
Where
Julius and
I'm like in the local area. Okay.
Okay.
Why did my wholesaler offer me this beer? How come my competitor
yeah.
has it? You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
So
it's good thinking.
yeah,
And it has its uses.
Yeah.
And I mean, I know as far as brewers and our collective discussion boards on Facebook or emails, I think there's a lot of frustration with it. And I think most of it is from when people are just giving trash ratings to beers that they really don't like. You know?
exactly.
It's like,
Exactly.
oh, I don't really like Hefeweizen. I don't like stouts, but this one sucked like the rest of it. Come on, man. Spread some positivity. I don't really like stouts, but this one is one I had.
All right, so let's move on to your Cafe Donna. This is
All
the
right.
fourth and last one we're going to be doing, and then we'll talk about. I want to talk about your seltzers too, while we got the audience captive right now. So Cafe Donna, which is a stout.
It is, yeah. So Cafe Donna is our stout, and I like my local name. So at the corner at Memorial Park over here in DeKalb, we have a tank named Donna. So, and if you buy the cans, that's why there's a tank on it, because it's named after a tank. But so then I try and add to Donna with her different variants. So this one's Cafe Donna. It has some coffee from Barb City Roasters that went into it. I've done just plain Donna several times, and then we did Lovely Donna, which was raspberry in it. So it was a raspberry stout. And stouts are by far my favorite beer. I have, as a home brewer for 10 years, I have brewed more stouts than every other beer combined. Because pretty much every other beer was a stout, and then there were some occasional ones, like I did do a barrel-aged imperial. But stouts are just my favorite. There's something about the roastiness that just, similar to like why people like coffee. I drink black coffee, I like my stouts just like that. But I also, one of the things that I kind of prefer is lower ABV stouts, mostly because I like to drink a lot of them. And, time and a place, I love me some big imperial stouts and had plenty of all of them and waited in line on Black Friday like most people have. But for an everyday stout, I want to be able to have, a good number of them and not be totally wrecked.
Yeah, this reminds me of Sohop's. They have one called Borden Street. And it has the same consistency. It's kind of almost like a consistency for me like a porter.
Okay.
But it does have a lot of.
The last couple batches I made of it were more in the 4.5%. This one bumped all the way up to 5.1. And this one I really felt like as I drank more and more on the previous batches, they just were coming out more watery than I wanted them to. So with this one I added a small portion of oats to it, just to try and give it a little bit more mouthfeel to it, just give it more body. And then of course I added the coffee. And this entire beer, on my end, felt like a pretty big gamble because I have done oat stouts before, but not here. I've done them at home. And I've never brewed with coffee before, so really talking to one of the guys who's been a great, phenomenal mentor to me is John Lambert out at Harry Cow Brewing. Phenomenal guy. He does a coffee beer out there that I really like, and so I love you too, kiddo. So I really contacted him and said, hey man, I want to add coffee to one of my beers. How do you do it? What should I do? How would I expect it to turn out and everything? And he really kind of coached me through it, just over text message. It's super complicated, but it was still a little stressful to do something totally new. And boy, I couldn't be happier with how this turned out. I think this is a beer that if I brought a keg home, that keg would be gone pretty quick.
Yeah, no, this is delicious. This is delicious. It's
Yeah.
got it's really light. It's almost borders on sessionable for me because I can't taste the alcohol in it. You know, it doesn't.
Yeah. This one's got like a perfect kind of like a combination of like just a little bitter from that black bean coffee, but you know, and the hop in there. But it almost is. It's got like if you take a couple sips, you really kind of note that dryness at the end. And it's just kind of like a little kind of an homage to like a Guinness or an Irish. You know, I think this one's done very well, and I think that coffee just puts it over the top.
Yeah. Thank you. And that Barb City Roasters coffee is phenomenal. When she came in and talked to me, she brought a jar of cold brew along with the coffee so we could kind of taste it. We blended a little bit, a little cold brew, a little stout, just straight out of the fermenter. Kind of messed with it a little bit to get an idea of what it might come out like. And boy, did it come out exactly as good as I think it could have.
Yeah, you're getting good reviews at the store. So,
Nice.
yeah,
Nice.
people like this. So let's move this along so you can get on with your day. I don't want to keep you. I know you got some canning to do. So what's in store for the future beer wise for you guys? Are you guys gonna do any collabs with anyone? Have you talked to anyone about that or?
I've kind of asked around a little bit. I think we're kind of the rookie in the game. So I know definitely my comfort level is like I'm the new kid on the block to some extent. So I'm kind of like, well, I think that right now I'm just working on getting better and better at what I'm doing here, and I know that would be a good step, but I just haven't built a relationship with any other brewers that we've talked about it, or at least not talked about it enough to bring it to fruition. I would love to. Specifically, there's a couple of brewers out there that I know just like I'm in awe of their beer. You know, they're making such phenomenal beers out there that I just love to go even just be a fly on the wall for a brew day and just like pick their brains and learn from them because they're making such great beers. But I don't have anything planned on the books. I'm working on a couple new beers. I've got a Doppelbock I'm going to brew this winter. I've got a new IPA recipe that I'm going to do. A couple of the old ones coming back, like the Byers Lager was our American lager we made a couple months ago. Going to bring that one back. Really want to get just tanks filled up and keep them full. It's been an interesting year with teaching and everything in business, and I haven't been able to keep my fermenters full. But now feedback from Gus and from other businesses is people want our beer in stores. So with that being said, I got to make more beer to keep up with that demand, because I don't feel like I am keeping up with that demand. So once we get more beer, then I think we'll be on it. And we're experimenting right now with some seltzers. I made just a clear batch of unflavored seltzer that I've got in kegs here that we're kind of using some flavoring pumps to test what we might like as far as flavors go. And I've been working with some of the flavoring companies on what that might look like. But it's a interesting kind of new area of beverage that when I talk to like John and Mac Orchard about cider and stuff, they're always kind of like in limbo, like we're not wine, we're not beer or something. And I think seltzers are kind of the same thing, where now that as far as I've seen, the FDA is saying you got to have your nutrition facts and your ingredients and all that like a food and not like an alcohol where you don't need those things. So there's some hoops to jump through, but I think that'll be a really fun gluten-free, low calorie option to add for when we get back opened up and can have bands and get downtown hopping again.
So who do you go out of your way to drink? All right, so you can't say yourself.
Yeah.
Someone out there who's your favorite beer right now?
So I absolutely go out of my way to drink Art History. I think their stuff is just phenomenal.
Okay, where are they out of so people
They're
know?
in Geneva.
Okay.
They're right next to Ace Hardware, kind of in a little corner. They're also kind enough to let me borrow their keg washer / rent it when I need some kegs cleaned, because I don't have a keg washer. So I drive out there pretty frequently, and it's always amazing just to sit and have a couple of their beers, because they're just they're both their owner and their brewer formally trained with many, many years experience. Like, it's amazing. The one I'm most excited about, but I haven't gotten to try yet, is this new brewery in Downers Grove called Goldfinger. As a beer nerd, like the history of the Goldfinger family, being in maltsters in Poland in the 1400s, and this history that's moved forward and how they opened this brewery here. And I've heard really great things about their beer, but I've not yet made it to Downers Grove. So that's kind of the one that I'm really looking forward to.
All right.
But art history's been my jam lately. Those guys are killing it.
Awesome. All right, so let's let's wrap this up. Anything you want to say to the viewers out there? This, we're gonna upload this and it'll be on there, and people will get a chance to see what's going on. Just for you folks out there, I'll put the information about this brewery down in the comments, so you guys can know where to go to look at it and check out their hours of operation and whatnot, and what kind of specials they got going on. So, Steve Byers, owner, brewer of Byers Brewing Company. So, what do you got to say?
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I got to say is just thank you. Thank you to everybody. Thanks for Gus coming out and talking with me about beer, and everybody who enjoys beer, and thanks for supporting small businesses and just keeping the craft beer world alive. I think it's one of the coolest things that we don't know about as kids. Nobody. It's against the law to tell your kids about how cool craft beer is, unless their dad's a brewer and owner of a brewery. But man, is it just such a cool science? I teach science at the high school, and the science behind it, the passion behind it, is one of the coolest industries ever. And I just appreciate this opportunity to get to do something really awesome. Yeah.
All right,
Very
guys.
lucky.
Yeah. So that's it for today. Just remember, don't forget to support your local small craft breweries, because they're in a situation that sucks right now. So they got it off a little bit worse than some of these bigger places like Anheuser-Busch. Can you imagine them? So, anyways, guys, thank you for joining us today. Thank you, Steve, for gracefully letting me come into your place and talk about your beers and stuff like that, especially at last minute like I did. But we got a live stream off, and we talked a little bit about your brewery, and hopefully people will come out and visit or check out your beers, and we will talk to you soon, folks. So we got the only thing I got planned for the rest of the year is our next event, which is the virtual tasting event, which is the dinner and craft beer pairing with the Forge Brewery on New Year's Eve, which is Thursday, December 31st, 7 p.m. will be the stream. You can find all the information on the Facebook page, and you can buy tickets for that. And that is it, folks. Thank you again for joining us. We will talk to you. I'll